We are back on Morning Line. Our guest is Allison Fields, veterinarian, and every once in a while in our newsroom at Channel 5, one of the reporters will come to me and say, I have an animal type story I need to deal with, and I'll say, well, as long as you treat her right and don't waste her time, Allison Fields will talk to you. And
we just talked
we've
to
gotten past
Alexandra,
that, and I was going to ask you about that story.
Yeah.
She was calling you, which was interesting. I didn't know, but it makes sense, about blood banks for animals. If an animal needs a transfusion for a surgery that you're doing, where do you get the blood from?
It depends how critical the animal is. If we are planning a surgery and we know that the animal's going to need a blood transfusion, we would probably refer to a specialty hospital, such as Nashville Veterinary Specialists, Blue Pearl Veterinary Partners down in Cool Springs, because they stock blood. They have a refrigerator with blood in it, just like they do for humans, that has been typed and cross-matched.
And it's the same way with dogs as it is with humans. I mean, different types.
Different types.
You have to match the blood with the dog.
So you don't
There's a universal
have
donor.
to. There is a universal donor. So in emergency situations, if you need blood now, you can just take blood from a dog and give it to the other dog.
Just for that emergency, and then eventually you need to give him more of his real blood, or I mean, is it the kind that matches?
The trick is that if you do that without typing each of them and making sure that they're okay, the dog that you gave it to will then develop antibodies to that type of blood. And if they ever need another blood transfusion ever in their life, and you don't type and cross-match it, and you give this kind of blood again, the dog could literally just die.
Is that the same thing that would happen to a human?
I have no idea.
What if you gave me a transfusion with dog blood?
I don't think you'd make it. They're different size red blood cells. Every species' red blood cells are just the tiniest bit. That's why we have specific blood machines as opposed to humans. It's because the red blood cells are different sizes.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's very cool.
I think part of her story was then that the blood supply comes in a shortage, but there's not a place locally where, for instance, if you learned that your dog was the universal donor, where you could take your dog to donate blood. Is there? Locally, I'm pretty sure Allison.
I don't think so.
Her story did not say there was locally.
And I have worked in practices before where, and most veterinarians will go through this, like with their staff dogs that are large dogs, they will type and cross-match. I mean, it's not cheap. It's like $200 to test these dogs to make sure you have all of the, the type, the cross-match, all of that. So most clinics, a lot of clinics will find employees with big dogs, and they'll pay to type or cross-match them until you find that one universal donor, and then it's like, all right, if we need blood, you're going to go home and get your dog.
In a pinch, you go get your dog, and you can draw it.
Because then it's a universal donor, and we know that we won't have that reaction later in life. But a lot of times, I mean, I've worked in clinics that nobody's dog was a universal donor. So, it is.
Well, then you try to find, if you can, maybe one of the dogs that's the type of the dog that you're treating.
Doesn't matter. I mean, look at people. We're all humans. We're all, the same species, but we all have different blood types.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that's interesting.
It was very interesting. But yeah, she was like, I wanted to talk about the shortage. I'm like, okay, we need to tailor this, because you can't just call your vet and be like, I want to bring my dog in to donate.
Right.
It's fabulous. We love that thought, but it just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I had no idea about it, but it makes sense. There's surgeries where they need blood like anything. Where does it come from? Let's take a quick call from Jim. Jim, good morning. Hi, Jim.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking my call. I had a German Shepherd that I had the hip replaced on at Blue Pearl, and she done great. She was approximately 6 years old when I had the hip replaced.
Yeah.
She lived to be 13 years old. She had a little hitch in her get along.
A little hitch in her giddy up, yeah.
She had a lot. She did good after the surgery. Blue Pearl, they kept her in one of the treatment rooms separate from everything else. And every morning about 9 o'clock, they called and give you a report. She stayed there 11 days.
Yeah,
and
it's a pretty.
The two little pieces were, I think, $1,500. The total surgery after it was all completed and everything was over $10,000.
Yeah.
But my only choice was euthanasia, and if it done that, it had to done me also. So I didn't want to go. So I had her hip replaced.
Well, I'm glad you did. You guys got another 7 years together, which is
That's
amazing.
wonderful.
It really
Yeah.
is. It really is. And thanks to owners like you, we're able to do things like that.
Well, he's a
You know,
wonderful owner.
absolutely.
But, not everyone necessarily, you hear that and you wonder,
There's pet insurance.
Can you afford it? And I was going to ask you about that then.
Yep.
So someone sees that and goes, gosh, I don't have $4 or $5 grand right off the bat if this all of a sudden happened. I love my dog. I want to do everything I can. What about pet insurance for things
Well,
like that?
Pet insurance right now is about the place where human insurance was about 40 or 50 years ago. Which is a good place to be. Keeps things competitive, doesn't drive prices up. We don't have all this inflation.
Oh, I see.
So basically, pet insurance, they do exclude pre-existing conditions. So if your dog's diagnosed with horrible hip dysplasia and it needs a hip replacement, you cannot get health insurance and then get your dog's hip. It's just like it was 40 or 50 years ago for us. The other thing is you have to pay the veterinarian. You go in, you put it on the credit card, you write the check, you do whatever, and then you submit it to your insurance company and they reimburse. Now, most of them at this point in time, you can take a picture of the invoice, send it to them, and the money's in your bank account within 24 to 48 hours. They're really good. And there are a few veterinary pet insurance that work with veterinarians and some veterinarians that work with it and file for you, which basically means we just fax the receipt to them for you. So there are different plans. There are wellness plans. There are accident and illness plans. So you can get a plan just to cover the basics like, vaccinations, heartworm prevention, fecal, deworming. Personally, I think you're better served to pay for that wellness stuff out of pocket and just get the accident and illness because you're going to spend about $200 a year on the regular stuff, just the wellness stuff. But then if you have that insurance for if your dog eats a sock and he has to have surgery, now you're looking at $2,000 to get it out and all of the aftercare and everything else, or a hip, or anything like that.
I'm going to get that. We have 4 dogs, and we've got the money pit, which is a bulldog, even though so far he's been healthy. But you say, and you've told me that they'll develop problems. I'm going to get it.
So the other thing is, if you're a good saver, insurance is always a gamble. If you're really good in Vegas, you can do your insurance because you may or may not use it, just like for us.
Right.
This past year I went to the doctor twice for my regular checkups and I haven't done anything else, but I have a really high deductible, so I still paid all my premiums and I had to pay all my doctor stuff.
I do the same thing.
So we gambled.
You gambled that
we
it's not
weren't going to
something
get
huge.
sick and need it. So it's the same thing with the pet stuff. So if you were going to spend $40 a month on all 4 of your dogs, that's $160. What if you put that $160 in a separate savings account for your dogs?
Right, and then
every month,
and you save that, you leave it alone,
and then you
go
save it, and once it hits a certain number, now you convert it to a money market account or invest it in something. And so if you're disciplined enough, and if you were going to pay that already, and you're disciplined enough to save that money, maybe you get health insurance for the next year or 2, but you also create that savings account for them, and then you can cancel the health insurance, and you have this kind of. I started one when I was in college for my cat that I had at the time, and it was like $10 a month. I was in college. And eventually it got to be a very sizable amount.
You've got great willpower though too.
I don't put anything in it anymore because it's big. I mean, I was in college a really long time ago.
So, and you still have that?
Yeah, and if I don't use it for the pets, then I don't use it for regular stuff like vaccinations and heartworm prevention. I pay all of that out of pocket.
So it's just sitting there, right?
It is just sitting there, and if I don't need it, it's part of my retirement.
Yeah, that's your own fund. And
right.
Well, that's interesting. So you have a separate pet emergency fund that you've grown since college.
20 years old.
There's good money in there, and you leave it alone, and you'll touch it someday when you're in retirement.
Or if I need it for when
it's in the CD, did you say, or it's in an investment fund?
It's in an investment fund at this point. It didn't. I mean, it used to be just a little checking account with I think I put $100 in it to start. And then I throw $10 at it when I could when I was in college.
You just do that and you keep it up and you grow, and then interest, if it's in a good little account, you've got money there. Have you had to use it to pay for?
No, I have never used it.
Oh,
I've
okay.
never had. I mean, I had one cat that I had to take up to UT, the vet school, to be worked up for a thyroid thing, but I didn't use it then. I've tried really hard
because
not
you're a
to
vet
use
yourself too.
Right.
I would think
so I
some
get a
things you
discount
can maybe
on some.
do. Yeah.
I do a lot of stuff, and I do get a discount on things. Like if I, go back to my alma mater, the vet school, I do get a discount there.
Yeah, but don't
still,
you sneak into your own clinic sometimes late at night and do surgeries by yourself?
No.
You don't do that.
No.
Okay, I was just wondering if you did.
What would I do surgery on?
Well, I don't know if there was an emergency on the animal of your pet, and you could just do it yourself. And
Oh no, you never want to be the doctor for your family.
because your heart is too involved.
I mean, I have. I've neutered both my cats.
You have?
I neutered both my cats.
And they forgave you?
They did. And I spayed my I wasn't going to spay my little cat just because that's a little bit more, but she went into heat. I thought she was younger than she actually was.
Oh,
She's
you weren't going to do
tiny.
it then? Yeah.
And I was going to get another friend of mine to do it, and she went into heat, and I literally took her to work the next day and spayed her on my lunch break. I was like, we not being
This is
in
Gammon?
heat. No, Cammon's a boy.
Oh.
Don't say that. It's Madeline. You've never met Madeline. She hides all the time.
And she's a tiny little cat.
Tiny little.
Okay, but then you did that.
I
You
did.
have to have some assistance on
Yeah,
that,
but
right?
I don't do, like, if my dog were sick or a foreign body, I wouldn't do big kind of scary surgeries on my own pets.
Okay. But the big surgeries are the ones where there's a general anesthesia used.
Well, they all have general
most dogs
anesthesia.
are.
The neuters and the spays have general anesthesia.
That's okay. And would you say also are they knocked out too for teeth cleaning?
Yes.
Teeth cleaning.
They have to. They just don't lean back,
I
open
know.
their mouth, and stay.
They're not going to. You have no
and
choice.
that'd be so traumatic. So it's so much quicker and easier if we just let them go night-night, clean their teeth, polish their teeth, and be done.
Do they have to be on a respirator when that's happening?
Respirator, no.
No.
They're breathing on their own.
They breathe on their own. Is there ever a situation where an animal?
Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing with humans. A lot of times we're kind
If
of
you're
out.
doing a chest, like if you go into the chest, your lungs no longer have the negative, they can't inflate because there's air compressing them from the outside.
Okay.
So there's negative pressure in your chest, which is how your lungs can inflate and go, because there's not stuff pushing on them.
Yes, right.
So once you open that, heart surgeries,
Someone needs to breathe for them.
chest
Something
surgery,
needs
then
to.
that's when they're on a ventilator.
Wow, that's
Same
more,
thing in people, same thing in dogs.
Yeah, same thing with
Yeah.
people getting. All right. I was just wondering about the surgeries, but how often should you have your teeth cleaned on the dogs and cats, or does it matter?
So-
I mean, in terms of 1 year, 2 years, and is it different between dogs and cats?
It's a little different between
Okay.
individual dogs and individual cats. Ideally, we would clean them once a year, just like people get their teeth cleaned twice a year. But some dogs have phenomenal teeth and only need their teeth cleaned every couple of years. I saw an 8-year-old dog the other day that's never had its teeth cleaned and has not a lick of tartar.
Huh.
It's all genetic.
Okay. Thing about it is, we've taken our pug in. A lot of times, people will notice it if their breath starts smelling bad or
Right.
something like that, and you get it cleaned, and that's fine. But we've
I would
brought in our
imagine you're-
beagle once, one of the pugs, and I told you this before. You don't realize it, but they did have cavities too that had to be causing the poor
Right.
dog pain.
And you
I
take
felt
these
so
teeth out,
guilty,
and
like
they're
I
running
didn't-
around like, woohoo! I feel
know,
great.
but I felt so guilty because
Yeah.
how long was it? So I mean, you need to have it checked. I was like, after that, I said,
Yeah.
never again. We're gonna take them in on a regular basis because the poor
full
dogs.
X-rays of the mouth, just like we get done when we go to the dentist. We take X-rays because a lot of times you look at these teeth and they look great. There's nothing wrong with them, but then you get an X-ray and you can see that there's actually an abscess up in the root of that tooth, causing them pain
Yep.
and problems.
So interesting, because you remember again bringing up mashed tater. She, when we
Right.
got her, was so old, and she was a
Trench
small
mouth.
dog. She had no teeth, and we fixed her mouth, and her mouth was healthy again, but she never had any teeth. And you said, Nick,
Right.
put the kibble down and
Right.
watch what
She ate
happens.
it.
Because I was like, does it have to be moist food?
No.
And you're right, it's small. They will do it, and
Yeah.
they don't have to chew the kibble, do they?
I mean,
The
most
body-
dogs don't.
They don't. They just inhale it.
They just.
Which
Yeah.
is why with the bulldog we have that bowl with the little
Oh my God, that's
obstacles
so
in it.
mean. So his tongue's like out like 6
Well, what it
inches
is
trying
they
to get
told
it.
us. I mean,
know.
it's
I know.
amazing. If
Yeah.
you put that just open bowl of it in, he literally eats so fast that
Like
he
a
gulps
vacuum.
oxygen.
Yeah.
And the air gets in his stomach and then he's bloated. Whereas you have all these obstacles, so he has to eat
Yeah.
around.
I know. Treat
is
balls
that-
are good too
what
because you
is
can
it?
treat like a ball that they can roll around. You can put
Oh.
their food in it, and it will slowly dispense pieces of food as they knock it around.
Oh, I
so
haven't
that's
seen
another.
that.
It's
That's
also good for mental. Well, it's not a feeder; it's a treat ball.
It's a treat ball. Okay,
But you
that's
can put
good.
food in it.
I love that idea because
it's
that would
great.
keep him more
I fed
physically
Harper
active.
like that when she was a puppy.
Well,
She
I'd
ate
never-
all of her meals out of a ball.
Are there other dogs you think that do that? I mean, and the bulldogs are just crazy. Their mouth's so big, and he just evaporates.
Yeah.
What other dogs maybe need something like that?
I think, again, it's not necessarily a breed. I think it can also just be
It's just the nature of that dog.
That personality of that dog.
Because if I laid a platter full of roasted chicken in front of Rocky, he would eat it.
Of course he would.
He would.
Yes.
That's the only way he's ever going to get a bird. He can't catch a bird, but he would eat it if it's served on a platter. And he would love it.
Harper would look at it and look at me and look at it and look at me and look at it and look at me and wait until I said okay.
What about
if I didn't say okay, she'd just
she
keep.
would? What about a
she would
cast iron
have
pan
drool dripping
of sautéed beef right in front of her?
We would burn her mouth.
No, after it's
cast
cooled
iron
off.
pan.
After it's cooled off, and it's like
She
2
did the same
pounds.
thing. She would wait until I said okay.
And if you said okay, would she eat all 2 pounds?
Oh yes.
And then
Absolutely.
and then it'd be an ugly mess.
And then it would be an ugly mess. Talk about not being able to pick up your dog poop. Be like.
Allison, thank you for coming on. We have a guest who gets to follow that.
Excellent.
Okay. But thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
We'll see you again
next
in a month, all right?
Yes.
Take a break. Be back with a very special guest from our kids and a great fundraiser I want to tell you about right after this.